Who wants to know about the $200 billion that the world owes to Iran? I know I've paused talking about my military strategy and trade route type of a thing. See, the thing is, in America, when you give out military strategy at a moment in time when your country is in active war, Patriot Act starts to get thrown around. So, but this is not strategy, this is history. Because the world owes Iran billions of dollars. Depending on who you ask, it could be up to 200 billion. At one point in time, the number was 100 billion. How does it keep growing? Well, it's because of lost wages, lost opportunity, lost trade. And I know you already know how this is happening, right? So everyone say it with me. It's happening because of sanctions. But if you said the United States, we will accept that answer as well. So the United States won't let their allies pay for oil that their allies have already received from Iran. Actually, this is a recurring theme, and it's not just with oil. We did this with the oil pipeline that was built during the rule of the U.S. coup that we put in during the Cold War, when Pahlavi, the dad, not the one who's currently trying to take over, but his dad, the one that we put in with a U.S. coup, when he signed a trade route deal with Israel, to get a pipeline to get goods, oil, etc., up to Israel and the Mediterranean and Europe. Israel, they never paid for it. They never paid for it. Their reasoning was because of sanctions. Whose sanctions? Say it with me. United States sanctions. Now, Israel, they have been ordered to pay that back. They said no thanks and still haven't done that. And then more countries began falling in line. See, while Israel, they were saying no to paying for the pipeline that they then wanted to nationalize and continue using, all of the other countries said no to paying for the oil that, again, they had already received. The biggest debtor right now to Iran is China. But if you're thinking, oh, well, then America's not involved. No, 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 no. China's not willing to pay for the oil that they got previously because of it's America's sanctions. They're afraid of secondary sanctions for transferring these unrestricted funds to Iran. And it's not just China's 20 billion that's tied up. Iraq owes between 10 and 11 billion, South Korea between 6 and 7 billion, which you may have heard of previously. India owes 5 billion or more, Japan 3 billion, and Luxembourg, Italy have small amounts as well in the million. Now, I mentioned you might have heard about South Korea's because you see, South Korea got with the United States and said, hey, wait, let's make a deal. Not because South Korea wants Iran to be paid, but because South Korea was terrified of owing Iran money. So the axes of the world, that would be South Korea, United States, and any of their allies, they called up Qatar and they said, hey, we don't want to start a war over the money that we owe for the products that we've already received. Could we give you the money instead? And Qatar, being the absolute Western yes men that they seem to be, they did take on that role of being the middleman and negotiating. But for Qatar, that just means pretending to negotiate and doing the things that the United States or their allies, Axis, wants. And what the Axis wanted was a lack of autonomy in Iran. They claim that they wanted the people to be provided for, but not the military. The problem is that the Iranian people's existence is contingent upon their military. So anytime that the Iranian government gets money, the funding is almost always redirected into their military because that is where the money has to be because of the consistent and constant threats that the world, no, that the axes of the United States allyships continue to put on them. They have no choice. And so the United States, the Axis response then was to say, you can have your money if you spend it only on the people, but then we put rules. I just want to recap that real quick in a way that I think that viewers are more likely to understand. This is the equivalency of if you, as an adult person, worked a job and your parents then said, well, I don't trust you with the money. We're going to put it in my account. And then if you need money, you tell me. Qatar, of course, being the parents, they get to decide whether or not the spending is approved or not approved. And then the list that they're working from, as far as should it be approved or not, that is from the United States. So things they can get, basic medical supplies, if they fill out a very complicated form to prove that it's going to civilians and not to military. Apparently, while our military deserves some of the best medical care in the world, theirs deserves none at all. Literally cannot even get aspirin. And then the people can have seeds. They can have, grain, oil, I cannot remember everything. It is very limited amounts of food and seeds for them to grow. But wait, they can't have anything that's dual use. So things like tractors, things like fertilizer, they're literally not allowed to have them because the United States says, wait, we don't know that the fertilizer is growing food for the people to eat. They could be making weapons. And while it is true that some of these things could be used for weapons, they are dual use items. Saying you can't have them at all means civilians can't have them at all. So what are the civilians losing? Water. They lost water. We said they couldn't have water. Desalination specifically and reverse osmosis, things that filters and purifies their water, and water pumps, mass water pumps to get water to cities, citizen cities. We say they can't have them because those same pumps could be used for weaponry, the creation of weaponry. Fertilizer, we discussed. They get seeds. They get enough to grow minimal amounts for their people, never enough to export, never enough to gain autonomy for the land of Iran, never enough to diversify away from their oil. Medical devices. Some cancer treatments are not accessible at all in Iran. Cochlear implants. If a kid cannot hear, they simply can't hear because they're not allowed to get cochlear implants because the United States says that it could be repurposed to become a weapon. Even things that officially they can have if they meet the requirements, they still can't in practice because other countries are terrified of secondary sanctions, terrified of being cut off from the United States dollar. So they simply don't trade. The paperwork that they could get, they can't get because the other countries don't want to work with them because they are terrified of secondary sanctions and being cut off from the US dollar. So Iran's economic situation that caused the people to rise up, that caused the people to start demanding the son of the coup who we admittedly put in last time, Pahlavi, if you don't know, Pahlavi. It's not just caused by their inability to trade oil. It's not even just caused by their inability to use the US dollar. It's caused by their inability to trade anything with anyone who uses the US dollar. And that includes for goods that they have already provided. They are owed billions of dollars, not only in literal compensation for things that they've already, like product for money, goods, not only in a direct sale, they're owed in their potential for what that money and what those goods could have been doing the whole time. They could have been earning, they could have been saving lives the whole time, but they couldn't because the United States would not allow them into their country. Does America have legal right to dictate what other countries can and can't have? No. No, they don't. No, they don't. Thank you for asking. No, they don't. Will the United States take out anybody who tries to get in their way? Yeah. Yeah, they will. What do we call that? Coercion. Political coercion at the cost of lives. Isn't there a word for that starts with a T? Yeah, we label it to the people who have the oil. The people who have the oil are the T words. The people who are bullying to get the oil, to get the trade route, really. We're a patriot. And guess what? Guess what? It worked. Effectively, it worked to starve the people, to cause suffering to the children, to reduce any autonomy for everyday civilians, to ensure an authoritarian state. We did a great job of doing all of those things. We did not do a good job of keeping the Iranian military from superseding our technology because their military program, as you are aware at this point, is exactly what I have been saying it was for a year. It is more advanced than ours. It is able to outsmart, out-navigate, and outcost ours. Is that the word? Theirs is extremely cheap and extremely advanced. At least for what it is. For their goals of saturating our systems, our interceptors, it was extremely advanced. Again, I'm sure you've seen this by this point. They did that under sanctions. Their COVID vaccine, by the way, only a few months behind ours and pretty competitive with ours. They did that under sanction. Their stem cell research program, they did that under sanction. The items that relied on knowledge and skill and technical assets, they supersede us every time. We can buy more, they can make more. And what they can't make on their own, what they couldn't figure out engineering forward ways, they simply reverse engineered it after we sent it to them to take out their children. So, why is Iran's economy the way that it is? I think we all know. Let's say it together. America's sanctions. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.